everyone. Thanks so much for being here and listening. My name is Maddie. I'm the host of Truth Matters podcast, and I am partnering with Lisa Gunshore of Buddhist Biohacker podcast to present some interviews in preparation for her Quantum Feminine event at the end of this month. I'm really happy to be joined by Victoria Jane Ascension today. Thanks so much for being here. And we are going to be discussing Victoria's topic for the Quantum Feminine event, which is how to channel. So I'm really happy to get into this and just learn more about you, Victoria. It's really exciting to connect and meet you today. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
So, go ahead.
Where would you like to start?
Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background in terms of awakening, what this, spiritual journey or path has meant to you in your life and kind of how you got started on it. And then where did channeling kind of make an entrance into your life, and what about that piqued your interest and got you on that path as well?
Great. I'm just going to get rid of myself on my screen. So
you're fine.
Well, let's go right back to the beginning. So let's go to a little bit of childhood. So I was really dyslexic as a child, and so when we have limitations we adapt, and so I adapted to just reading people and reading energy, so I could kind of have context before I could start actually reading words and sentences. So I think right at the beginning that was already kind of opening me up to kind of connecting with people in a different way, and I could really read a room even though I couldn't explain what I was reading at that time because I didn't really have the vocabulary. But I had really good dyslexic training, so now I can read and write and everything, so that's fantastic. But I still kind of had this kind of extra sense that kind of stayed with me. And then I'm going to teenagehood. This is where, looking back now, my kind of shamanic kind of connection started. So I was actually diagnosed with epilepsy around 16, 17. And this is where my reality started to really kind of close down externally, and I was really in this different space. And at the time I didn't understand it at all. I just thought, okay, now and again I fall over and have a seizure and get back up. But actually epilepsy and seizures is just a whole other dimension of what's happening to the nervous system and to the amount of light that you can handle in your body and in your cognitive conception as well. Mm-hmm. So that kind of also kind of broke me away from the normal reality, and kind of it made me kind of tune in a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And then a few years later, now and again you just get some magical person just kind of appear in your life, and they'd come up to me and go, "You can talk to angels." And I'd be like, and I was a young adult, so at the time I'm just a bit like and then and then a few different people say it, and I went to a mind body spirit fair, and this is where it all kind of was like, whoa. All these people were like chatting to me, and I was so interested in the subject as well, and it was just mad. And I could just, as soon as I walked into rooms like a fair like that, it's just, you can see all this smoke, but it's not smoke, it's all these spirits. And I was just like, it's really smoky in here. And I was like, whoa. Yeah, that's not smoke. I was like, oh. And so that was really my first experience of being around these people who spoke about light workers and who spoke about ascension and angels and spirits. And there was just everything there. And I was just, felt like Christmas, really. And then there was this main woman who said, I teach something called angelic Reiki, and I think you'd be perfect as it, doing it. And really that was my first kind of practice that I did. And angelic Reiki is a practice created by someone called Christine Kaur. It was actually her partner called Kevin Kaur who channeled the technique when he was in Egypt. But they're both from the UK, so for some reason angelic Reiki does have this kind of UK vibe, I've realized over time. And it does connect to Egypt, but to me there is a resonance here with the land here and the kind of pagan energy that we have here as well. And angelic Reiki actually teaches you to channel an angel. So you learn a technique and you bring the Reiki energy, the life force energy around you, and then you actually, with your intention, bring an angel in. And all that's meant to happen really is the angel then heals the recipient instead of me healing. And I just kind of let the angel kind of come in. And then I did a few years of this, and then suddenly I could feel that this angel like wanted to speak. And I was like, but I didn't know how to actually let a different entity speak through you. It's a very peculiar feeling at first, and I could feel I want to speak, but you just don't know how to let that. It's a huge leap actually in the channeling journey, actually letting that happen, especially if you're not already good with your voice, or if you're not a singer and you don't really know how to express verbally. It's a huge jump when you can get to that space. So then I went to somewhere called the College of Psychic Studies. College of Psychic Studies, yeah, it's called that, in London. And they were teaching about channeling there. So I did a few classes about verbal channeling. And that really kind of opened me up. And I did a few exercises, and we used a book called Opening to Channel as well. And that really kind of initiated me into this. And then a few years later, I had a huge nervous breakdown. So this was the key moment, shall we say, where everything kind of happened. So I was on a quest to learn about the cause of my epilepsy. So I was very into healing and fine in that. But then I went very deep into my shadow and into my psyche and into the Akashic records, and it was very kind of it was too much for my mind, and so I just kind of, and my nervous system. So at that time I was having a lot of seizures. I was going through psychotic kind of episodes. I had like Tourette's symptoms, so I would just like start saying like random things all of a sudden. It was quite a circus.
That would be really challenging.
Yeah, it was mad. I couldn't work really for about 2 years. Yeah, it was full blown. I had to have someone kind of look after me. But at the time, even though all of this was happening and the doctors were like, we don't really know what's happening because you don't have Tourette's, but you have Tourette's symptoms. The seizures you're having aren't epileptic seizures now, the different types of seizures. And so, and you know, the psychological unit had no idea what was happening. And then, so while all this was going on, suddenly my channeling abilities were I was just wide open, shall we say, to spirit. And just by synchronicity and just with the flow of the universe, people would just come to me and ask for like a session. And I did already do sessions before with angelic Reiki and things like that. But no one really came to me. I would kind of try and find people to do sessions for. And I was like, well, okay. And then suddenly the talking was happening, and it was really flowing, and it was really hard. Because channeling is very hard. I would say if you think meditation's hard, try channeling. It's really hard because you're just confronted by what I call the channel tunnel. It's a dark tunnel of all of your stuff, and you're like, oh, and you just have to like keep an eye on that light and just channel it down while all of your kind of doubt and insecurities are like here. And so I had all of that going on while I was trying to really like be with these people. And at first I was just doing it for free, and then people just started to like give me a bit of money. And then I started like working as just someone who was a channel, and it was just incredible because I wasn't going anywhere. I was just in this little apartment with my partner at the time. He was looking after me in the Netherlands. And somehow people told each other. And then I had clients from California, from Australia, from Costa Rica, Bali, in Europe. And I had suddenly created this kind of following, should we say, and dear friends as well now, from just the little room in the Netherlands by myself, just kind of going crazy. And that's really kind of how it started, and it really helped me learn about the boundaries of channeling, because I was open to everything and anything, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Oh.
So, I would set the intention to bring in an angel, but then when I was just by myself doing stuff, suddenly I'd be like, something like, who's that? And I'd be like, yeah. So you have to learn about self-exorcism, which is a whole other kind of pudding of crazy.
Yeah.
And it really kind of maybe understands spirit and boundaries and intention and declaration and kind of having that power with spirit. Whilst having that loving energy, having that authority of, you're not coming in my house, I call it, which I'll explain a bit later. So that's kind of how it started. And since then, I've just been studying and researching and trying to kind of strengthen my craft. And to do this, I was very resistant to being a channel for a long, long time. So only really in the last year or two have I actually fully surrendered. I still haven't fully surrendered, but I'm still like, it's one of those things where it's just happening, and suddenly it's just like you just have to let it happen. And so I went back to university to learn about esoteric mysticism and to learn about what the guides were talking about, because a lot of what they were saying I didn't quite understand, and it was blocking my channel as well, because I would stop because of the channel tunnel. They'll be like, you don't know what you're on about, you're making this up. And so you had to kind of learn about what's coming through, so you can also kind of ground the information with metaphors or with past people who've said certain things, and you can really ground the information coming through with your own kind of intellect and creativity. Because I'm a conscious channel, so there's different types of channels. And so when you're a conscious channel, that's when you're in that channel tunnel and you're using your own intellect, your vocabulary, but from the perspective of the guides. And so it's like a joint kind of teamwork, really, to try and help the person that's come to you.
Which makes sense why you would also need to learn about what they're talking about if they're kind of using your own vocabulary, right? Then the more information and knowledge you have, the more in depth they can go. Is that kind of how that works?
Definitely. That is one of the main channeling tools, actually, is vocabulary. And most of us who are channels are very right-brained, and we're very kind of creative, and we don't think much about learning different words and writing, should we say, and having a good vocabulary. But it's actually a huge part of verbal channeling. And I was teaching channeling to somebody, and she kept saying the word yummy. She was like, oh, it's yummy. I can feel this energy and it's yummy. And I said, right, you're not allowed to say the word yummy ever again, because we have these different words. And I said, how you need to explain it more, like explain it to the person. It feels like I can feel this tingling sensation in my body, but it's external to me and it's coming through, rather than saying it just feels yummy. Because it's about really hitting people's truth buttons, is what I call it.
I like that. That makes sense. Because what you might naturally want to say might not be the first thing that resonates with someone else, right? You kind of have to keep them in mind.
Yes, exactly. I call it a truth masseuse. And so a good truth masseuse because they kind of like massage your truth button. And you can tell when it's working because people go, oh yeah, ooh, like you're getting a massage.
Yeah, that's hilarious, but that makes a lot of sense.
So you can always tell when it's working because people will like make sounds like they're being
yeah.
Ooh, and sometimes the truth hurts, and so that's when it's like, ow.
That's a perfect analogy. I like that a lot. Wow, you have a really cool story. It's really interesting how you kind of naturally fell into it, but it's also, but also you've worked at it a lot too. Like it is like a craft, almost like a job kind of, because you are offering service to people, right? Bringing in these downloads and this information. I want to ask you a little bit more about the seizures and the epilepsy. I guess it wasn't really epilepsy, but those symptoms. What do you think? Do you know now what the purpose in that was at all? Do you feel like it taught you something, or?
Well, it's it's always epilepsy. So I do have epilepsy, but at the time I was having different seizures as well.
Oh,
But it's, to be fair, it's all the same. It's just the doctors measure certain waves and they call it certain thing. But for me, I was like, there's definitely a connection here and there. But so with epilepsy and having seizures, it's always been associated with witchcraft, shamanism, kind of like the psychic abilities anyway. Usually it would be a sign in a tribe. If a kind of a young child would start having seizures, they might go, okay, this person may be the shaman of the tribe. When they're older, and they might start training them. So it is one of the kind of telltale signs that maybe someone has that extra kind of sense. And what we kind of are understanding about the nervous system now in regards to the light that's coming in through kind of the new age and the golden age and fifth dimension is that our nervous systems have to kind of process this light. And it takes a while, and this is why we have shaking practices. And really it's just the body shaking. You know, when you have a seizure. But it's so deep that the mind, to protect itself from going completely crazy, it just shuts off and you go unconscious.
Oh, I see.
So even in the medical world, before you have a seizure, there's something called an aura. And so people can feel that they're about to have a seizure. And even that's called an aura. So we're even bringing in that kind of spiritual terminology into the medical world. And other people with epilepsy describe it as a deja vu. So you have that deja vu feeling. And so I also feel it's kind of like a timeline shifty kind of feeling. Suddenly it's like something trippy is about to happen, and then suddenly your mind is like, yeah, I'm out. But I think you would have a different seizures for different things. It's mainly when the nervous system and the mind is like, yeah, I can't handle this right now.
Interesting. Okay. I didn't know that epilepsy had that background too. Like the tribe example, where that might be a sign that someone actually has more of these heightened gifts, right? I think that's really
yes. Well, back when they used to burn witches, if you had epilepsy, you were definitely gonna get
gosh, such a harsh world. Jeez. Oh wow. So I think it's interesting too how your work specifically has been guided to work with angels. I think that's really neat. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think some maybe misperceptions what do you think that people have any misperceptions about angels, or what angels are here to do, or how angels can help us? Because I think if anything, we limit how much angels can help us, because I think that there really are, they're here to work with us. So any thoughts on that?
Oh, I have so many. Well, what is interesting about the word angel is now and again people spell it wrong, like angle or angel, right? And that isn't actually an accident. So angels, a lot of people see angels as geometric shapes. And every angle within a geometric shape has a specific frequency and resonance. And these geometric shapes actually are the glue that kind of brings the universe together. It's like it kind of holds it in, it kind of pulls it in. It's not quite gravity, but it's very similar kind of energy to gravity. But every angle within that geometric kind of formula has a certain resonance. If it's a curved, it's usually a bit more of a feminine resonance, and if it's straight, we identified that with more of a masculine energy. But then we have, of course, all the different geometric shapes within each other. And these angles within the geometric shapes are actually the angels. And the angelic realm actually is the kind of the glue that holds everything together. So this is the teaching from Angelic Reiki. That said, these angles can be personified, and then we call these angels. And these frequencies have specific abilities and specific messages and specific kind of roles and goals. And the great thing about the angelic kingdom is they are here to serve. They really love being in service to humanity and other dimensional beings as well. That's why we like angels, because we don't have to give anything back. Like the fairy realm, where you have to it's more of a give and receive dynamic. But with the angelic realm, they're just giving and giving and giving. They're very high to the resonance of God. And the thing is, they can be infinitely duplicated. So this means that because they're shapes, right? They're geometric shapes. So for example, a ball, that ball can be duplicated into anything, right? You never think I'm going to run out of a sphere, the shape of a sphere. You could just draw another one or create another one, right? You're not going to run out of shapes. You can just keep duplicating it. And so it's the same with the angelic kingdom. So some people feel like, oh, I don't know if I should call upon them. I don't want to waste their time or anything like that. It's like, so it's like these can be, they're infinitely duplicated, even as a personified entity, and you can continuously work with them. If they are with you 24/7, it doesn't mean that you're taking them away from anyone else. These are just your versions of those angelic entities or beings. And then there's just like a whole load going on there, because then you have the archangels, and they just have the other angels, and then they get along with the unicorns, and it's just
yeah.
But, the angelic realm is fantastic. I use them daily. The archangels, Raphael, Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, Metatron, Sandalphon, they're fantastic angels just to be kind of bodyguards. And friends and activators, and some of them even like dance with me, especially Raphael is a fabulous dancer.
My gosh, that's funny.
and it's a lot of fun, really. You can really have fun with angels, because they have that real light-hearted, giving, kind of like a nanny energy. You feel safe.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that we never have to worry that we're taking an angel's time up, because I feel like that's, like you said, they're here to give and serve and protect, and I feel like we miss out on so much help and so many wonderful gifts from the angels just because we're not remembering them. And I think the best thing we could do is just remember them daily and thank them daily, and just give them love and gratitude every day. And I think that, I mean, I've had a lot of amazing experiences with angels, and just the protection they can offer, and just the useful type of things that they can offer as well, practical things that are going to help you in your life as well. So it's never ending. You have nothing to lose with asking the angels for help. Your life can only be better.
Right. Yeah. And don't worry if you don't know the names as well, because if you need help, car parking angels are the favorite. So if you don't know the name for the angel that's good at finding you things, then you just say, angel of finding car parking spaces, please help me.
Okay.
It's that easy. Yeah. Or just say, angels, help me out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because the angelic kingdom and spirit guides generally say to me, we can only do so much unless you ask, because you have free will.
Yeah.
So they can't intervene too much. So if you're just like, why are you not helping me? They're like, we want to, but we can't, because you have to ask. So continuously asking, really that's praying. Yeah. So praying, channeling in that direction. Right? Rather than this direction. So you do really, if you want a strong connection with spirit, angels, God, whatever, you have a prayer practice. There's a reason that prayer is like the favorite practice, because it really works and strengthens that connection as well. And then you can actually start to hear the answers in time. If there's no questions, there's no answers, because there's infinite knowledge up there. And so they're like, well, we can't tell you everything, so you might as well ask something specific. We can give you a specific answer back. Okay.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Ask and you shall receive. That's great. So when it comes to maybe teaching other people how to channel, or helping people become more familiar with that process, where do you begin in that realm? How would you describe how to channel? Because that's your topic for the event.
So I'm actually currently creating kind of a technique that I think is brilliant for channeling, which I'll explain in a little bit. But first, in regards to channeling, we have to figure out what it is. Like, what in the world is this channeling thing that people are talking about? So channeling is an ancient practice, but it has always been and still is the most controversial spiritual practice there is. As soon as people start talking about channeling, you can feel that kind of like, this is going to get a bit too much. And it is very controversial because the boundaries are kind of being played with here because of spirits coming in. And this is where people get a bit kind of fruity with what could be happening here. And this is why I teach what I teach, because it's all about boundaries and it's all about kind of consent of what's kind of happening. Now, with channeling, the terminology and the idea of what channeling is still up for debate. So something's just come up on my screen. Can you see that as well?
Yeah, I just clicked out of it.
Yeah, so there are different ideas of what channeling is. And so there's a great book called Channeling by someone called John Kleeman, or Klimo. And I think it's Klimo, Klimo. And he has like a glossary of channeling and all the different words in which mean certain things in regards to channeling. And lots of different spiritual teachers seem to go by that. So that's a brilliant book. And in this book, he also shows how many different ideas of what channeling is, and he's kind of narrowed it down. So when we say the word channeling, this is when we're bringing energy down, but also has information.
Oh, okay.
So it's not just healing,
Right.
kind of. But creative flow could be channeling because there's information there, right?
Yeah.
And so this is where it's a bit like, and so we have all these different kind of types of channeling. So you would have verbal channeling or conscious channeling, which is kind of what I do. But you have automatic writing, and that's channeling. So this is where kind of you either feel energy come through, or you would consciously, or maybe not consciously, bring in an entity and they write through you. This is how I channel for myself. And then there's just creative flow, and you can get downloads, which people talk about, or mediumship is seen as a type of channeling, but the entity is usually outside of your field rather than inside. So I might explain my teaching because it might make this make sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So I feel quite passionate about bringing the arts back into spirituality. So spirituality and science are starting to come together, and that's great. But this is really starting to dampen our connection, I think. Kind of raising the faith, which is great. Because we live in a world now where we need proof.
Yeah.
And so, you know, seeing how intention affects water, it gives us that faith. Okay, so this is what sacred water was about, and understanding quantum physics and the holographic mind. And everyone's like, okay, we're really starting to see how this is possible. And that's fantastic. But also it's making everything very literal. And so I'm not saying channeling isn't literal. And if, for example, someone's talking to a galactic soul group like the Palladians, I'm not saying it's not literal, but we are only taking it literally at the moment in New Age culture. And really, that's a very left-brained, scientific, orthodox Christian way of kind of connecting to spirit. And we really want to bring in the arts back and the mystery back into how we connect to spirit, because this is how spirit communicates with us. It communicates with metaphor and with symbols. It doesn't communicate literally, because the literal truth we can't comprehend. Whatever science is saying isn't true. It's a fantastic representation of something we can comprehend, but it's not the truth. And anything in spiritual literature isn't the absolute truth. It's just that which we can ground. And it's fantastic, and it helps evolve the psyche. But us kind of holding on to, we are literally channeling an entity without opening kind of the blind spots of what are the metaphoric messages here and what's the symbolism here, so I can fully receive the messages from spirit. So when I teach, I really bring in the metaphor. I'm working with metaphor to connect to spirit. And this is because metaphor kind of ghosts through the logical mind and comes into the body and into the senses. When someone uses a metaphor, we can feel it a bit more. Like there's an elephant in the room, you know, and it has a bit of humor. It's raining cats and dogs. And even though that's not literal, you can kind of feel it a bit more, and actually raises that frequency because it's kind of fun and you get it. Mm-hmm. And it hits the creative and imaginative aspect of our consciousness, which is where the guides come in as well. So I'm going to talk you through a little visualization, actually, because I was going to explain it and I thought let's just do a visualization instead, and then we can talk about it after. So I have written it on this laptop, so I might try and figure out how to do this. Right. And then I will explain a bit after.
Okay.
So let's see if I can see you. I can see. So this is for you, Maddie, and for anybody watching.
Cool. Awesome.
So if you want to, and when you're ready, just kind of closing the eyes and just connecting to the breath, and just letting the body and the mind know that it's now time just to receive a nice visualization, and you're really going to open those ears up just to listen. And when we channel, we need to understand the difference between the self and the other. So we have boundaries with spirit. So we understand who is the channeler and who is being channeled. And now here is the visualization. I want you to think of yourself as a house. You have walls and windows and even a front door. The foundations of your house were created from your own unique blueprint. And to make this house a home, you create your own house rules. Clean the house. Maybe occasionally you redecorate the house. And you also delegate different jobs to the different members of the family who inhabit this house. Within this house, there is a wife, there is a husband, there's children, and other family relatives. They are all you. But this is no ordinary house. This is a lighthouse. The light represents your presence, mindfulness, or what is also known as the Tao. The light of presence naturally is authoritative, warm, masterful, and compassionate. This light is the natural activator of your unique blueprint of your own house. The lighthouse has a tower stretching up to the heavens. Its spiraling, ascending staircase reaches up towards the light. Within this house, there is an extra character, a magical character. This character is calm, curious, very humble, and an honorable servant. This character cleans the house, locks the house, and decides who's coming in and out of the house. This character within you is called the Lighthouse Keeper. The Lighthouse Keeper represents your will and intention. The Lighthouse Keeper is in charge of the frequency of you, the frequency of the lighthouse, and holds space for the internal family to make decisions and resolve issues. The Lighthouse Keeper is magic. This character is like a wizard or an enchantress who has a deep understanding of energy and the laws of magic. The Lighthouse Keeper is in charge of the light and is in charge of the house tower, and knows that this lighthouse tower is not just a tower, but is also a tunnel. I'm just going to take another deep breath in. And slowly, just coming back. Sorry about my laptop making a noise. So this is the metaphor I'm preparing to teach, to help people channel and connect to the self before they connect to other selves that might want to come in and say hello. Mm-hmm. And so this technique is called Lighthouse Frequency. And to break this down, so we have Lighthouse Frequency. So the light is our presence. It's that mindfulness. So we have Eckhart Tolle, his practice, the power of now, Buddhism, mindfulness, all of these practices are that light. And that is the foundation of this Lighthouse Frequency. And when I teach, I will definitely be we're just going to do mindfulness. No playing with spirits yet. We just want to bring that light in. And it's important to know that we're not imagining light. We're being present. And that's the light. Right?
I see. Mm-hmm.
It's a whole, because then you can feel it. If I think Eckhart Tolle does like a meditation, like an eye gazing type of meditation on YouTube. And I was just looking at him and I was like, wow, like he cannot be touched by spirits. He's just solid because he has that like light kind of just like. So that's this number one. So we've got light. Then we have the house. And so the house is actually our psyche. It is our body as well, but our house is our own personal kind of flavor. So this light, this presence is kind of that oneness energy. But then if we want to kind of separate us, so we have the definition of self and other, we have the house. And using a metaphor of a house is fantastic because as humans, we actually respect houses more than we respect people.
That's funny. Oh gosh.
So the energy of the metaphor of house kind of shows spirit who may want to kind of work with you that there's some respect here, and I have walls, I have windows, and I have a door, all of which are shut right now, and you can use this metaphor in so many different ways. I've got so many different meditations, but the main part of this house is the blueprint of the architecture of your own house. And this is where the presence is important, because we have that presence and that activates your essence. And then you actually push your blueprint kind of through your field or into your house, which creates kind of the architecture. Otherwise, what happens with most of us is we have, instead of blueprints, we have imprints of programming and of other people's kind of projection, and we think that's the self, right? But actually it's not that true kind of essence self that's kind of pushing out. And so we first start with that, and then we can play with visualization. So we can put bodyguards outside the house, we can close all the windows, we can open the windows, we can clean the house. So this is cleaning your energy, and we can use what we're calling the lighthouse keeper to do all of this. And so within the psyche, we have many different characters already in our psyche. We have the inner child, we have fragments who are traumatized that need to come back, we have the inner masculine, the inner feminine. There's a lot going on in here. And so knowing about that also helps us know who we are and who something else is, so we can feel the difference of channeling or not channeling. Really helps. And also, once you kind of bring this internal family together, you create a really strong kind of antenna to kind of pick up the signals of, because then you have that wholeness kind of feeling. You're holy when you have that. And so that's a huge part of channeling as well. You have to continuously be doing shadow work and working with your psyche and understanding the self, spiraling towards the self rather than away from the self. Otherwise, well, yeah, that's a whole other subject there. So we have the lighthouse keeper as one of the characters. We bring this character in. And the lighthouse keeper isn't the higher self. The lighthouse keeper is that part of you that invokes the higher self. Right? So, sometimes when you kind of meditating, you go, okay, I now invoke my higher self. I now ask an angel to come talk to me. I'm now going to protect my field. All of that is the lighthouse keeper. Right. It's kind of the keeper of the light. It's also the part of you, if you're meditating and your mind just kind of wanders off, and then you notice and bring it back, that's the lighthouse keeper. Right? He's going, welcome back here, you. And so the lighthouse keeper is actually our willpower and intention. And so the lighthouse keeper is in charge of our frequencies. The lighthouse keeper is the one who's like, we should probably do some gratitude affirmations right now. It's the part that's trying to keep the lighthouse kind of working and supported and clean. And once we kind of identify with this character, we don't have to identify with it all the time, but having that character in you consciously, you can then start to build your own lighthouse in a way that works for you. So with the houses, you have your house rules. It's when I say people respect houses more than people. When you get somebody else's house, you automatically are like, what are the rules here? Like, do I take my shoes off? Do we kind of pray before we eat? Do we flush the toilet? We always flush the toilet now, but back when I was a kid, some houses you didn't flush the toilet at night because of plumbing reasons or something. And so there's all these different kind of rules in different houses.
Okay, yeah.
So we have to figure out what our house rules are. And of course, this represents our boundaries. And so house rules aren't just for spirit, it's also for people. So you could even use this metaphor, just working with people and working with your friends and working with, what are your house rules? How big's your house today? Do you want me to come into your house? Do you want me to just call instead? And so it's starting to really kind of create a thick, strong auric field using this metaphor, rather than just saying, I now protect my auric field with blue light, which works, but it's still very literal, which actually makes it kind of ungrounded, ironically.
Interesting.
Because we don't actually know really what the auric field properly feels like. We, as extrasensories, we can feel into it, but it's so much more. And so we might as well use something that we really agree is something like a house.
Yeah.
Agrees what that is, and spirit reacts to frequency, and so it can feel into that. And a bit more than this kind of floaty auric field feel. And so if we want to channel, then we can use the tower, should we say, of the lighthouse. And then there's a whole other visualization here if you want to, if you feel ready to channel, if you want to kind of open up this channel tunnel and bring a spirit down to come into what I call the master's room. And if a spirit comes into the master's room, this is when I call it primary host, and this is when they'll come in and be like, hey, and your face kind of changes and stuff, and everyone's like, well, that's weird. And you can kind of work with spirits in that way, and you do have to kind of explain to them, I'm using the metaphor of the house. When I say this, I mean this. Everyone's like, okay, got it. Like on board.
Yeah. You really do have to set your own rules, huh? Or else you could probably have a pretty negative experience, I would imagine.
Yes, yeah, and people do. I say you're always channeling something. Always.
You're always letting something come through, right?
You could be, but I mean, you're always channeling something. I mean, you could be channeling your ego or your inner child, or you are channeling a whole other entity that's not even you, that people think is you and you think is you, but isn't, because you've dissociated so much from maybe past trauma. And so we really need to start feeling into, okay, I'm a house. Am I the master of this house? And the master of the house really is that presence, essence. And so this is why mindfulness meditation is just so important. It's the most boring one, yes, but really it is the foundation of all the fun stuff. And if you can't master that presence, like I have ADD, my presence practice was terrible for so long. But if you can't master that, then you don't have that foundation to be able to kind of fully be in that power, to then start playing with magic and playing with spirits and playing with channeling or whatever it is that you want to do. So yes, but you can have a lot of fun with it. If you don't want to channel, you can be a medium, so you can ask the spirit to give you a call instead of come into the house, you know. And then if you don't do your presence meditations, there's what I call a break-in. So if no one's in the house, or if the master's not in the house, this is Tole says this, you get all the creepy crawlies kind of come in. So you have to kind of come back in, clean the house. Which can happen.
And even if you don't consider yourself a channel, and maybe you don't even want to be a channel, these principles are still really good. These healthy boundaries with other energies, right? So we can be a master of our own energy, a master of our own physical body, but also mental body, emotional body, everything. I think I really like this analogy. Just if you just want to become more grounded in general, I think it's really good. So
exactly, yeah, it's a fantastic metaphor, especially introducing the lighthouse keeper into your kind of personality toolbox. Because the lighthouse keeper is that magician, is that enchantress, and these abilities that these archetypes have are what we're moving into. We're moving into the fifth dimension. We're moving into magic. The world is already governed by magic, but we aren't aware of it, and therefore it's used against us. Really. So we need to go, okay, magic is already here. I think the most dangerous thing in the world is people not believing in magic, actually. I was thinking, believing magic is actually dangerous. So we really need to come back and so into that presence space, into that trust. Otherwise, it's like, I don't want to work with magic. It's scary. It's like, it's here anyway. Get with it. And then we can truly start becoming these ascended masters, and it's fun, and we can play. And also, if you can feel someone psychic attacking you out here, you can kind of go, oh, what's that? And you can close that window.
It's that simple. I mean, it takes a lot of more awareness, and it's all about sovereignty, really, too. It's being sovereign of your own everything. But it is simple, I think. I think this shows people too that, like, why wouldn't you do this? It's simple, and no one wants intruders in any way, even if it's energetically, you know. So it's great.
We're so powerful. Like you say, it can be that simple as I close a window, especially if you've got a strong mindfulness practice. whatever you say definitely goes because you're here, you know.
Because you're present.
Yeah. At the moment, we're not there. We're not enlightened beings yet. And so that's why we do need the protection. We do need the angels. We do need to continuously clean the house.
Yeah.
You know, it is a continuous process at the moment because we're not there yet, which is fine. This is the evolutionary process. But once we've mastered this present space, that's when we can start, you know, probably levitating and working with proper magic and moving energy. And because it's magic's all about boundaries of energy, and at the moment it's about sovereignty and protection. But once we're living in a safe space like the fifth dimension, we can use these boundaries to actually manipulate matter and manipulate kind of weather, for example, if we wanted to, through magic rather than technology. Technology mimics magic.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's funny. I like that you said magic is already here. So if you're in denial of it, then it can be used against us. I feel like that's sadly true.
Yes.
Yeah.
People are not asleep. Everyone says, oh, everyone's asleep. No one's asleep. Everyone's just under a spell.
Interesting.
So we need to kind of come out of that kind of spellbound, you know, and a spell can be something as simple as advertisement and subliminal messaging. And so we know that's true, shall we say. Psychologists say it's true, but it's way deeper than that. There's energy behind that, and frequency and code. And those who are understanding these frequencies already can start working with magic. But right now we're just being trained to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And to play with manifestation, to play with the law of attraction is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It is fun. There's a lightheartedness to all of this. And I think that that's really good because it's powerful. I mean, everything that can come through and happen is absolutely powerful. But it's also just showing us, you know, interacting with the spirit realm is really fun and uplifting, and it's doable. It's not so mysterious or complex that we can't begin to explore it a little more, you know. You're helping demystify it, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a way of learning in the near future. So, you know, in schools, definitely alternative schools, you know, we'll be tuning into spirits who maybe were alive in the 1700s and want to talk about the 1700s, and to get history lessons in that way, or to kind of tune into a multidimensional perspective on a certain issue that we're debating about, and having kind of these different perspectives kind of come into the classroom. So this is channeling and mediumship, and because this is part of the evolution, this is the main difference in how we will interact in the fifth dimension. It's all about perspective, it's all about evolution, and so that's the only reason we channel, really, just to get a bit more kind of insight on the situation.
Yeah, I had never even thought about it being used in schools. That's interesting. There's so many possibilities that could come from it. It's really cool. Yeah. To wrap up the show a little bit, I'd love for you to maybe touch on, what do you think one of the biggest misperceptions people have about channeling is, that kind of maybe irks you? Like, maybe a lot of people think that, but you know from personal experience just isn't true. Is there anything like that you can kind of debunk for us?
I think the main one would be that it's a gift. It's not a gift. It's a skill that can easily be learned by anybody.
Okay.
Anybody can channel because you're already channeling anyway. You might as well just consciously choose what you're channeling. Right? Anybody can do it. But like any skill, some people are just better at it than others. So, you know, I can half play a piano if I was taught, but, you know, some people are just better at things like that. I can't fix a car, but somebody else could, but I could if I tried.
Yeah,
you know,
that makes sense. Yeah.
And so it's just like any other skill, really. And I think the main thing about channeling, because everyone's drawn to it now, because everyone's like, what is this?
Yeah.
And everybody can do it, but everyone probably has their own way. So maybe if writing is your thing, start with automatic writing. It's great to see how you learn in school, actually. If you're a visual learner, you'll probably be clairvoyant. If you're an auditorial learner, you'll probably be more of an auditorial kind of connected with spirit. If you're kinesthetic, you'll probably maybe be move with spirit, or you will listen to the symbols and the synchronicities around you as you kind of walk through life. And so know how you already learn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably how spirit will first contact you. I was first contacted by spirit through dance because I was a dancer. And so that's why I said Raphael's a good dancer, because
Oh, that's so awesome.
different angels kind of will come into me and dance me.
Whoa. Wow.
Do that in light language as well, right? That's kind of cool. And Raphael will dance like kind of like a salsa dancer, and then Michael that can't dance at all really. He's more of like a two-step kind of guy.
That's so
and and it just shows these different kind of frequencies, and it was easy for me to channel like that first because that's how I kind of explored this reality.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I really like that. I mean, in some sense, it is a gift, like you said. Like if someone's really good at playing the piano, there's a talent kind of aspect to that, but that's not to say someone else couldn't learn the piano even if they don't have that natural gift, right? So same with channeling. So that's good to know, and that'll also be really useful for people to kind of keep in the back of their mind when you're or during your talk for the Quantum Feminine event, because if you feel interested in this in any way, maybe there's a reason. So don't immediately shut it off and think that, oh, I don't have that gift, right?
If you're interested in it, that's probably your guides knocking at your door going, hello, and you're like, I don't know, I didn't even know I had a house, so I don't know what that sound is.
Yeah.
No, I'm interested.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this. I've loved learning about your story and getting to know you better. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
And thanks for the work that you're doing as well. It's really great. So thank you. And if anyone listening would like to sign up for the Quantum Feminine event, the link to the registration will be in the show notes, and that's October 29th through 31st at the end of this month. So thank you so much. And thank you, Victoria.